I am Gabriella Banks, the mother of 8 children, owner of Whole Note Acres Restaurant in Port Richey, Florida for the last 41 years. I was born in Maysville, Kentucky on April the 8th, 1931, where I lived with my family. My mother and father were missionaries to India. They were back from India. I have a brother and a sister. My brother is 4 years older. My sister is 7 years older. And we lived in Maysville until I was 5 years old, when my father got a job at Morehead State University in Morehead, Kentucky. When they came back from India, they had my sister. In fact, father went to Yale University, got his divinity degree at Yale University, and then was a pastor when Betty was born, and when Bill was born, and when I was born. They met a lot of people, missionaries, which we entertained in our home all the time. I mean, we had anybody from India or Japan. They knew they knew the missionaries there. So our house was very open to other cultures, which was a good thing. And then at one time at Morehead University, now it's a university, it was a state teachers college then, they had a lot of foreign students. And our house always entertained any foreign student. And there was there was a race problem then, as is, there's not one now, but there is now too. But a teacher came from India that my mother and father did not know in India, but he came as an English teacher at Morehead College. And he was not welcome at the one restaurant in Morehead, Kentucky, which is a blight on that era, which still happens. It's not like it doesn't happen now. But our house was constantly entertaining other cultures. And I went through school, kindergarten to 12th grade at Breckenridge Training School, which was a teacher's training school for Morehead State Teachers College. I had my very dearest friend in the world. She was older than I was, but she played in the band. At Morehead, the State Teachers College at that time, had a band, a very good band, marching band for the football team. And I was in the, I had gone from kindergarten and walked over from the training school to the music department and signed myself up when I was 6 years old for piano lessons, not knowing, I knew where the teacher was. And so they finally found out from my parents he was a teacher there, so they said, yes, she can take piano lessons. So I started taking piano lessons when I was 6 years old. And I loved the piano, and we got a piano, and I played piano. But when I was in the 8th grade, I wanted to play in the band. So the band director we were all good friends. It's a small college, and I'm in the 8th grade. And I say, I want to take baritone. I want to play baritone horn because I can sit next to Nell, who was already in the band. And so I want to take baritone horn. And the band director said, well, we don't need another baritone player, but we need a French horn player, and I will let you sit next to her if you take French horn. So that's the way I started taking French horn. And in the 8th grade, I was home from school because I had the mumps, and my father brought me the horn that I played the entire time I was playing professionally. And I have just given it to a grandson who refurbishes French horns and trumpets and stuff. And so I don't even have that horn anymore, and I don't play it at all. But he brought that home, and of course with the mumps you can't blow without hurting. So when I got over the mumps, I started taking French horn lessons, and that started me on the thing of the road to music, because I went to a music camp in Richmond, Kentucky at Eastern State College, and had a teacher there who was from Eastman School of Music. And he suggested that I send a record to Eastman, and I was accepted, and I went to Eastman. That's the way I got to Eastman. And I finished school in Rochester in 1953, at which time I married and started having the 8 children. Having children was a very important thing to me after I was married. And I had babysat, and I did like little kids. And I had the oldest, Stephen, in 1954. And then after that, I wanted to have children for my children to play with. And this is something that they know about, all the kids know, because I say, I had Stephen, then who is he going to play with? So then I had Leslie, and I said, well, who's she going to play with? And I got to the 8th one, and I said, you know what, I'm not going to have any more. Shannon will have to go to daycare or something, but she still had a lot to play with. And now I tell them, you know, I had you guys to have a good time with and play with, and you are really making it work now, because you're going all over the world together, you're doing this, that, and thing all together. So that's the reason I had 8 kids. But by the time I had the 8th one, I decided that there were enough to play with. And we came from Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, and we wanted to be at the warmest place we could be. So he found the people who needed 2 French horn players. And Tampa was the first place that we went. We had an audition with Antonini at this mansion on West Shore Boulevard when I was pregnant with my 4th child. And this was in June, and I had her in July. So I was very big. And then the other 3 kids were little. And all of us went over there to have the audition. And so Antonini got the music stand out, and he had his sight read stuff. And they had a dog, almost like King, who, that big of a dog. And David and I started auditioning, playing, and that dog went, ooh. And well, we got through the audition and we got the job. But that was in June, could have been in May. And we started playing when the season started in October. So we had that job, and then he got a job teaching at an elementary school, and we lived in Clearwater. But the next place would have been, if we hadn't gotten this job, we would have gone to Richmond Norfolk Orchestra, or Youngstown, Ohio. But fortunately, we got the job in Tampa, the furthest south. So that's why we were there. When we got the job in the Tampa Philharmonic and the St. Pete Symphony and the Sarasota Symphony, we played in all 3 of those when we moved to Florida. And we wanted a place with some acreage, and we wanted a house big enough for 8 children. No, I didn't have 8 children when we moved here. I had 4. I had 4 children when we moved here. From the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th were all born in Florida. The others were born all over the United States. Then, so we got the job at the Tampa Philharmonic and those other 2 orchestras too. And it's not a full-time job. And my husband had a job teaching music in a middle school. I think it was an elementary school then. And so he had a job in Palm Harbor, and we put a radius of 15 miles around Palm Harbor that we looked for homes. We were going to buy a place, and we were hoping we'd have a little acreage. And we looked at several homes, one in Dunedin, one in Tampa, and they were just normal, everyday houses. They were just houses with rooms in them. And we saw an advertisement for a place in Pasco County, in Port Richey, in the county, and came up and looked at it, and it was 2 circles connected with the floor plan for 9 circles. The footers were all poured, but there were only 2 circles that had a concrete block structure on them, and they were connected. And the plans for that were 9 circles, and eventually we built 7 of the circles. So these were all connected, and there were 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms actually, a living room, a kitchen, a big bathroom, and a small bathroom. Then we built another circle, which was a 7th circle for an office, and for a family room at that time, and lived in those 7 circles, and we're never going to finish the 1st circle or the 9th circle because we didn't need them. The kids were already going away to college, leaving. So in 1977, both my parents had died, and I received an inheritance for quite a bit of money, and I have always loved to cook, and decided that I would rent a little house in Port Richey that I knew the owner, and I would start a little restaurant in that house in Port Richey. And my daughter Leslie was in college, came home that weekend, and she said, I told her that I was interested in doing this. Had seen something in a magazine where a couple of women in New Jersey had done this, and I was going to do it, and I could bake bread and have soup and go on down there. And she said, Mom, why don't you build a restaurant? And I thought, well, why not? So I got a piece of Formica that we had done something with, and I made a circle with a plate on that Formica and made a circle around it. And I said, well, it'll have to be like my kitchen in the house, which is a 20-foot circle, but it'll be 30 feet. I knew of an architect, and he lived just north of here a little. I called him, and he said, well, bring it up to me in the morning. So this was Saturday morning. I took it to him, and he said, well, you'll need to get zoning. And this was in October of 1977. So I started in on getting the zoning changed, going to the county commissioners, trying to get the zoning changed. And finally, in January of 1978, I went to the final meeting of the planning, the zoning, and the commissioner meetings of Pasco County, and finally got the zoning for that. In the meantime, I had contracted my commercial contractor to do all of this work, and had them lined up to start building as soon as I got the zoning. So on January the 5th of 1978, I got the zoning changed to commercial. And on the 6th of January, they started construction. And on April the 4th of 1978, I opened the restaurant, which is not a long time. I ended up being the subcontractor. My contractor told me what to do, and we got the people to do it. So within that time, the restaurant was started. So that changed my life, because then I had a restaurant to cook for. And before the restaurant was ever built, and we were in my house, which is made up of 7 circles, my mother named this Whole Note Acres because of the circles of my house not the restaurant, but just the house. So any letter she would write to me would be my address, but it would be always to Whole Note Acres. So when I decided to build a restaurant, I already had the name for the restaurant, which was Whole Note Acres, which is another larger circle than each of the circles in the house. So that's the way Whole Note Acres came to be, because years before that, the property, my mother would write to Whole Note Acres. So that's the way the Whole Note Acres did. And we were music people, and this is a whole note, and that's the way that happened. So the first year, we built the porch because we were so busy. Oh, and we had the same recipe. After the first year, it was always soup, salad, quiche, and dessert. And drinking bread. And the soup was different each day, but the same every week. The quiche was different each day, but the same every week. So you could come on Monday and you would get mushroom soup and I don't remember what quiche, some kind of quiche. Then on Tuesday you would get mushroom quiche because it was made out of the mushroom soup from Monday. So each day was a different soup, a different quiche, and the same salad and the same bread, which ended up to be either white bread or a whole wheat brown bread, which ended up to be very, very popular because it had a crumb filling to it. It was a granola filling in the middle, cinnamon rolled up, and that became very popular. And so for many, many years, we were open from 11 to 2, and the busier it got, the more employees I needed to have. So the first day that I was open, in fact, from April the 5th until the Friday of that week, I was doing it by myself. And my son David came over and he said, "How much longer do you think you can do this by yourself?" Because I was out here not having a lot of people, but cooking for whoever came. And I said, "Well, I think I probably need somebody else." And he said, "Well, Mary Jane, his wife, could work here." So she came the first week I was open for a full week, and she and I did it by ourselves for about 2 months. And in those 2 months, Jim West came with his crew, and on a Wednesday of the first week I was open, he brought his crew here for an interview. And I had people in the restaurant, and they did the interview. And on the next day, there were so many people coming. It had been on the evening news, and I think it was like a 30-second spot saying somewhere in West Pasco there's this little round restaurant, and it's called, oh no, they didn't give the name. They said there's this little round restaurant. The next day, unbeknown to me, because I didn't know the television thing had been on, next day people came from Tampa, from Plant City, within the Channel 8 area, and the place was absolutely packed. And I didn't have enough food for everybody. And we just went wild, and finally I said, "Go up and get your own bread, get your own everything, just go help yourself." And a neighbor of mine passed by with all these cars here, and she stopped in and she said, "Do you need any help?" And I said, "Boy, do I need help, yes." So the second week I was open, I had 2 employees. And for a year, we did with just 2 employees, and built it up to the thing that the second year I built the porch, which has now tables on it and chairs, built it up to serve over 200 people in 3 hours. Then I started hiring more employees, and at one time we had 7 employees. So the business definitely improved by leaps and bounds, and so for many years I kept having the waitresses, the bus person, the dishwashers, I had a crew here, and for years we served that many. Finally, that got to be really too much, and I started cutting back. And in the last probably 15, maybe 20 years, I have cut back to where it is a manageable thing for me. So now it's, I'm not even in operation anymore because I have retired. So that was over 41 years of very successful restaurant development, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of that too. So that takes in all of the history, I guess, doesn't it?